Welcome into the Pursuit of Manliness podcast, where we are vigorously equipping men to pursue biblical manliness. My name is Jarrett Samuels. I'm the host of the podcast. Men, as always, I'd like to thank you for checking out today's podcast episode. Now, whether this is your first time checking out the Pursuit of Manliness or you've been here for a while, I want to encourage you, as always, make sure you visit the website, thepursuitofmanliness.com. There you'll find this podcast episode, a whole catalog of 400 plus podcast episodes. You can see what's available in the gear store. You can sign up for the email newsletter. You can learn about the herd and more. I want to highlight our men's retreat. Our men's retreat registration is open until Sunday, September 9th. So make sure you secure your spot. You sign yourself up, sign your son up, some guys in the church. Hey, man, that's your call. We would love to see you here in Indianapolis on September 27th, 28th in the fall. And then, as always, I want to remind you that the Wednesday podcast is sponsored by Loader Road Goods. Loader Road Goods out of Coshocton, Ohio. Chris Kent, owner, operator, chief leather man at Loader Road Goods. Listen, visit their website. You're going to see a ton of products available. I do want to say this. We're into August. As far as I'm concerned, it's fall. I know it's not fall for everybody, but that's where I'm at. That's where my mind is gone. So once we hit August, we're into fall. What's fall mean? It means more fires, more hanging out. Man, you make a fire, what's the best thing to do? Make some food. Get out those cast iron skillets. The other day, I received this handle cover that goes perfectly over my cast iron skillet. You sit around a fire, you make food in a cast iron skillet. Everyone's happy. It's a win. Hey, use the link and the discount code in today's show notes. Save money on your next order. Men, it's time for today's podcast episode. So a few weeks ago, on one of our tribe marriage calls, the topic was, how do you keep a rhythm for the emotional and physical connection between you and your spouse? We told them on the onset this was not a conversation to look for tips and tricks and techniques. It was, let's have a conversation about you and your spouse, your season of life, and how do you make sure the two of you are connecting, again, emotionally and physically, because those two are connected together. I want to say a couple things. Christians are for sex. We're for it. I know that's the narrative in culture is that we're somehow against it. No, we're for it. And we can and should have conversations about it. However, we need to make sure that we never say or do anything that brings people into a place when it comes to our relationship that they have no business being. Okay, so Hebrews 13, verse 4 talks about, making sure that the marriage bed stays undefiled. And that verse goes on to talk about adultery, which I agree with. We should make sure that we're not doing that. However, we also need to make sure that we never invite anyone into a space that they have no business being. In the confines of that Zoom call, we have anyone in tribe who is married is invited to be a part of that call. We do 3 marriage Zoom calls every session. I should say the door is up, so you might hear more traffic and noise than normal. It's like a football game. When the dome is open, they have to let you know. So we had couples on there. We probably had 12 to 14 couples. I don't recall exactly. But we had couples on there from being married a year or two to being married, one couple maybe 3 or 4 decades. I don't know exactly, but you get the idea. We span quite amount of time there. People in all different seasons of life, people with kids, people without kids, people with grown kids, everything. But the point is, life can get busy. We can get fickle. Different things can come our way throughout different seasons of marriage, and we can find ourselves in a position or a season where emotionally and physically we haven't connected in quite some time. Now, I feel like I need to say this, and I don't have any notes for this. I'm just sharing with you from my heart things that I've talked to my wife about, things that maybe some of you have heard me talk about in more closer settings or whatever. Let me say I'm not a marriage counselor. That's not my thing. But overall, I'm just a guy. I'm a pastor. So I've been married for 23 years. I've been a pastor for full time for 20 years. I've been able to work with men in tribe now for goodness, we've just completing our 7th year for tribe. And so I've seen a lot of things. I've had a lot of conversations, and I'm just telling you based on my experience. Your life, your season might be completely different. This is not a podcast on how to get your wife to sleep with you. you married a bride, not a prostitute. I don't know what her background is. I don't know what your background is. I don't know if you two have trust issues. I don't know if you have, dropped the ball 20 times and now you're hoping on the 21st time she's going to forgive you one more time. I don't know any of that. I'm just talking fairly general here. And at the end, I'm going to share with you three tips, if you will, 3 things to at least consider if you're looking to keep an emotional and physical connection. I do know this. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 5 says, do not deprive each other. I'm going to look specifically. Do not deprive each other except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Now, oftentimes when we read that verse on the onset as men, we see depriving one another except for a limited time. We think that once a month deal, right? Like, okay, that's that window of time. We'll go back to training camp, and then we'll resume the regular season after that's over. Not necessarily. He says, devoting yourselves to prayer. Are you doing that? Like, are you the two of you devoting yourselves to prayer when you are intentionally being apart, physically, sexually? Now, I don't think you can emotionally ever be apart. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to take an emotional sabbatical from your spouse. You can take a physical one, and there's probably a lot of good that comes from that. And as Paul's writing here, I think there can be good that comes from it, especially if you devote it intentionally to the Lord. But then come together again so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Well, it's one of those things that, once you're married and have sex, you're like, hey, that's not a bad idea. I'd like to do that again, right? But again, this is hard. This is complicated because we have people coming from a lot of different perspectives. Some people grew up in ultra-conservative environments, and this is not bad, but just the idea of sex was just such a taboo thing that, even a young married couple feels like that they're doing something wrong just by being alone together in a bed in a room. Well, that's not true. It's biblical for you to be alone together in a room if you're married. Okay, we want to do things God's way. Now, for you in your marriage, what relationship, what's done is done. Yes, you should repent of the things that you know that you've sinned against the Lord. However, let's talk about moving forward. I believe, and you've heard me say it a number of times, there are times throughout the year, maybe throughout the month, I don't know, but throughout the year, where you need to, as a man, call time out. And we need to have a conversation. As I said, being married 23 years now, we've had 23 different years of marriage. Every year of marriage is quite a bit different. Same person, sometimes same house, sometimes same jobs, but every year of marriage is different. And there are times right over here, I'm in my garage, but right over here, right outside the door that leads into our laundry room, we have called time out and said, all right, let's talk. And in that instance, you can talk a little more candidly. Hey, man, every night this week we've been doing X, Y, and Z, and next week it looks like that, and last week was that, and it's okay to have those conversations. If you're in the early years of marriage, maybe you don't feel comfortable talking about sex or how often or whatever with your bride. I hope over time you do, because it is something that's been given to you as a gift from the Lord, and we should see it as such. Now, when we talk about the marriage bed undefiled, I want to talk about 2 things. One, clearly you should not be sleeping with anybody else. She should not be either. And we're not bringing it, again, don't bring anyone into your marriage that has no business being there, whether they're literally physically being in your marriage bed or a bed anywhere else, or you're bringing them into details or intimate details that, again, they have no business knowing. Your friends don't need to know it. The guys at work don't need to know it. Your relatives don't need to know it. Once you share that, you can't unshare that. And so my wife and I are of the belief, we talk very highly of each other to other people. We don't lie. I've never heard her say things that were like, now she's probably patted my stats a little bit about how, he's wonderful or whatever. I'm like, I don't know how wonderful I am. But the idea is she thinks I'm wonderful. I think she's wonderful. So I'm not going to dog her, even to my closest buddies. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that honors my marriage, and that doesn't do anything good for she and I by any means. So we're going to do that. Here's the other thing when it comes to the marriage bed. And to me, I think this could potentially be the biggest issue. I'm going to say the biggest issue. The two of you need to sleep in the same bed.
You need to sleep in the same bed. It's a little shocking to me how many people don't, or how many people, because he snores, I have a different room. How many people, because she's got the Jimmy leg, and he gets up so early in the morning, or she stays up so late at night, or whatever. I mean, we could justify the inconveniences. I'm telling you, based on my experience, and you could say, and you don't know what you're talking about. Okay. The two of you need to sleep in the same bed. If she's got a Jimmy leg and she's kicking in the middle of the night, get a bigger bed. If you snore and she can't handle it, get a CPAP. Whatever you need to do. But I'm telling you, from what I can tell, again, just regular guy here, you all need to be in the same bed. And while we're there, your kids do not need to be in that bed. As a matter of fact, they should not be in that bed. I'll give you two scenarios where that has been the exception. One, they don't feel well, or they had a bad dream or something, right? You've been there. You got young kids. They come in. They're tired. They're shook. They're middle of the night. You're just trying to get through the night. You know you're going to sleep like garbage. But anyhow, you're like, just get in bed, right? Like, my kids are older now. That ship has sailed, so we don't have that. But there were times where that has happened, and we never had the funds to have a big bed. So our, what would you call that, full-size bed is now extremely full-size bed. So three of us in this bed, we're not going anywhere. God bless the person in the middle, because, hey, they got room for nothing. Literally. Okay. With that said, your kid should not be sleeping in your room either. They cannot. You have got to protect that room. There's enough insanity in your life. There's enough chaos in your life. There's enough expectations put on you by other people, including yourself, that when you get to that room, that has got to be a form of a sanctuary for you. It's got to be. You've got to protect that room. Again, maybe that's the place where you can have those call timeout conversations. The way our house is laid out, the way our room is set up, that doesn't work for us, because everybody can hear everything that you're saying in there. It just doesn't work. So we say, all right, so we're going to the garage, especially in July. Nobody wants to go in the garage because it's 100 degrees outside. Perfect. But that place has got to be your room, your sanctuary, your removal from everything else. Kids are going to come in. It's going to happen, especially if you got kids. It's a blessing to be inconvenienced by your kids, okay? There's people that would love to be inconvenienced by kids, so we want to take it as such. However, that kid needs to get their tail back to their room. That's just the way it is. I don't care how mom or grandma or whoever raised whoever. This is what you need to do. If you're going to protect the sanctity and sanity in your marriage, there only needs to be two people in there. In the last handful of years, there have been very few exceptions in our house when that has happened. One might be the husband or wife just doesn't feel well. Like, you're going to be up multiple times throughout the night, and you're like, hey, I'm going to sleep on the couch. I'm taking one for the team tonight. That's fine. 1 Corinthians 7, come back together. All right? That's the exception, not the norm. I don't care how comfortable the recliner might be. Come back together. That's what you should do. The other thing would be, there have been times, and sometimes it's like on a Friday night or something, I'm like, whatever, where one of my kids will lay on our bed with my wife, and they'll watch a movie. They don't want to watch what dad's watches. They watch something different, whatever. And they fall asleep, and I go in there and look at the contraption they've put together of blankets and pillows, whatever, and I think, I don't got it in me to move that tonight. I'm just going to go, and I'll go, most of the time it's my son laying there, so I'll just go dive into his bed and be like, all right, fair enough. If it's one of my daughters, I'm kicking her out. Get out. Go get in your own bed. They're older now. They can figure it out. But you get my point. At the end of the day, that's your bed. That's your room. That's your bride. Protect it. Okay? So when we consider emotional and physical connection, I want you to know, men, the physical connection that you hope to have tonight with your wife started yesterday. And I'm not talking about manipulation, but I'm talking about, for women, it is very emotional. There is an emotional connection to it. And as men, we have more and more through the years removed ourselves from that emotional responsibility. It's just the reality of it. We've done that through a lot of different things. We've done that by trying to be the best or the most or the greatest or the whatever at work. And I think you should shine at work. I think you should be an incredible employee. I've said before, if you don't want to be the best at what you do, then do something else. However, you better save something in the tank so when you come home, you be the best at your home. And your wife and your kids need that. They want you to be home. They want you to be present. They want your best when you show up. So I would say that you need to make sure that you're pursuing her emotionally. Again, we don't do that well. And so one of the things we do is we will, out of boredom, we just get this thing out. It's my phone, and I'll just get on Instagram, and I'll just see what's going on with my team, and I'll scroll, and hey, there's a camping video, and hey, yeah, we're gonna visit that place next year. Let's see what they got going on there. Do they follow any accounts that I should also follow? And before long, you have just digested digital sugar before you went to bed. No wonder why the two of you don't feel like connecting tonight. That's over. With that said, one of the great challenges for men is pornography. For most men, not all men, but a lot of men are like, well, I struggle with whatever every other guy struggles. Don't. Do whatever you need to do to be that guy, okay? Don't justify it. And I think we're justifying it because we're like, well, every other guy. No, not every other guy. Maybe just the guys that you're running up on. But I know I've worked with men enough. Not every guy struggles with that for different reasons. However, if you sit in your chair or in your living room or in your room or your garage or your car or whatever, and you digest digital sugar in the form of pornography or lustful images or videos, yeah, you might have had the oven all fired up by the time you get back to your room. But again, there ain't nothing to put in there. There ain't nothing going to happen. That's over. She knows you've checked out for the last so many hours or days or whatever. So men, if you say, well, my wife just doesn't pursue me, you pursue her. That's what we do. That's how we're wired. We pursue, they nurture. It works very well together. With all that said, a number of weeks ago, this is maybe what led to that marriage call for Tribe, or the topic, I should say, because we don't talk about emotional, physical connection very often on those calls. But I was driving, I think, to pick up one of my kids from work, and the radio station had a commercial. It was like, if you struggle with pornography, and then I'm thinking, oh man, and I just about hit the button to turn it because it was the same narrative, the same thing. However, this was for women. And I told my wife, I said, the way that commercial was speaking was like this was just common language. I know for men it's pretty common. I mean, it comes up often. I mean, there's a lot of ministries devoted to it and a lot of even conferences and things, but I don't think I've ever heard it for women. And the more I thought on that, I thought, well, if men are not pursuing women, if men are digesting digital sugar, women will still have the same needs that men have, that we're just filling it in a digital format that's garbage. Well, it stands to reason they'll look elsewhere also. And so if you're not emotionally and physically connecting with your spouse, if you're not sleeping in the same bed, if you're farming out everything else and you're downloading it and again, digesting digital sugar, stands to reason nothing good's happening there. Brother, I would encourage you, call time out. Blame me. Say, I listened to a podcast. I watched a podcast. The guy told me to do this, so I'm doing it. Whatever you need to do, you need to have that conversation. You need to protect your marriage. You protect that marriage covenant. And I'll say this, as a guy who I didn't know hardly anything about marriage except just stay married, it does get better over time. It's hard. It's work. Every day is work, but it's worth it. But it does get better. I have slowly learned through the years, and my wife graciously communicating to me some of these things, what her needs are. Times I go, you know what? I think she just needs a hug because I don't hug. Or I think she needs me to stand there and listen to the stories of the day and give her eye contact and nod my head and make sure she knows I'm tracking what she's saying, because I don't do that. I need to do that. Or again, if I realize, man, it's been days or it's weeks or whatever, then let's call time out and say, hey, when's the next time we see this happening on the calendar? And if it doesn't happen right away or it doesn't happen that week, whatever, to the best of your ability, don't take it personal. I know that's our knee-jerk reaction. That's been my knee-jerk reaction. It's personal, and then I'm mad, and then I can justify going downstairs and watching TV or eating whatever I want or doing whatever I want. Don't do that. Be better than that. So 3 things, and I don't know if any of this is helpful. I want to convey this to you. I'd say, again, one of the biggest warning flags I've seen through the years is when people don't sleep in the same bed. It's as simple as that. I was talking to a couple one time, and I said, I don't remember how I worded it. And they let me know they sleep in different beds. And I said, why? Well, the bed they had inherited from, so-and-so, it's not really big enough for both of them. I said, then get rid of the bed and go get a different bed. Go get an air mattress. Lay out, whatever, sleep bags on the floor, whatever. I mean, I'm getting a little crazy here, but I'm saying, come on. And they were only married like less than a year at that point. Oof. Okay. Here's three things that were takeaways from that call. One couple said that they go to bed at the exact same time. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a hard idea. I know my first year of marriage, my wife was asking me like, hey, you going to go to bed? And I'm like, no. You going to go to bed? She kept asking me if I'm going to go to bed. And I kept thinking, why are you wondering if I'm going to go to bed? Bud Smith for the St. Louis Cardinals was throwing a no-hitter. We're like in the 7th inning here. I got 9 more outs. Now I look back and say, nah, I get it. Okay. Slow learner. And I don't know if Bud Smith ever got that stupid no-hitter or not, but you get the point. Going to bed at the same time is a good idea. Now, whether you TV in the room or not, hey, I'm not going to get into that in this podcast, but whatever. But it is a good idea to go to bed at the same time. I get up earlier, she gets up later. We do. I know. But again, being there at the same time, emotional connection, physical touch, win-win-win, okay? Second thing is, a couple mentioned, and I think a few other couples kind of chimed in like they agreed or have done it in the past too, is putting a dot on the calendar of the last time you were together. So we had sex on the 17th. Dot. Okay. Don't make it a glowing dot. Don't make it in the laundry room dot that all the kids know it too or whatever. Like, it's not bravado points. You're not a fraternity anymore, okay? It's about, that was the time that my wife and I emotionally connected. If you grew up and sex was taboo and it was gross and whatever, and now you're like, it's not as gross as I heard it was, then put a cross there. Put whatever you need to put there, but you put it there so that's a good reminder, like, okay, that was the date. And so if you look at the calendar and you look at 3, 5, 7, 15 days go by, whatever, you're like, hey, last time was the 17th. We're now into the next month, whatever. I've learned also a lot of the stuff isn't intentionally malicious. Like, most husbands and wives aren't going around going, oh, see how miserable I can make them. Some of them are, but you picked them. So you got to figure that out, okay? So dot on the calendar. I thought that was a great idea. Third one was this. Close the door. Close the door. That's a sign for your kids. That's a sign for whatever. Maybe it's a sign for the spouse. When the door is closed, this is my intent. Okay? But again, if you walk in the room tonight and you close the door, she doesn't know what that means. That ain't going to work. Or she does know what it means, and you've been a tool all day. That ain't going to work. She may get up and go open the door. She may take the door off the hinges. So closing the door is just a simple way of saying, y'all stay out. This is between the two of us. Whatever needs to happen, turn the TV on, turn the radio on, whatever. This ain't about y'all. This is about, having a team meeting, and you guys are not invited. So just a few things, man. I'm sure you got stuff. If you don't, I'm sure there's plenty of things out there. I want to go back to this point. Our desire, my desire, is never to manipulate our wife into sleeping with us, ever. You married a bride, not a prostitute, okay? This isn't about 10 ways to get your wife to have more sex with you. I'm not about that. There might be a whole lot more going on than you're aware of, and certainly our past can and often does impact our present. So if there's abuse, neglect, or whatever there, you're going to have to navigate that road. However, the key is here, if you'll first emotionally connect with her well and appropriately, potentially there's a physical connection as well. But the two of you at least need to come together and agree what's best for our marriage. And identifying in this season of life, what is practical. I have 2 daughters that are 18 months apart. That means for 3-4 years or whatever that window is of math, my wife was pregnant. I literally took up boxing in the garage. I started boxing in the garage. I made a small investment in that. And that was a great outlet for me, because whether they were nursing, feeding, crying, in the wound, whatever, there were a couple years there, we were in full-on new baby mode or baby on the way mode. So, hey, maybe you take up boxing. I don't know. But here's the most important thing. Talk with your wife. Talk with your wife. Have an honest conversation. Don't be the victim. Don't be the martyr. Don't be, whatever. Just be your husband that loves her and connect with her. And then at the end of this, pray with her. Amen. Thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Let's keep pursuing biblical manliness.